Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to yet another edition of the Lambom Show. Today is Monday, September 13th, 2021. It's 6 p.m. my time. I guess it's 11 p.m. GMT. First of all, I want to start off by apologizing. We have been out for 2-3 weeks. We all needed a break of some sort, even though we thought we could, wing it through. Things happened, life happened, and we took a break that we did not anticipate. But here we are back, and we hope that we'll continue, building the platform. So today we have an interesting topic. As always, it's not as if the other ones are not interesting, but I believe that this is one of those topics that everybody wants to talk about and nobody wants to talk about at the same time. And our topic for today is cheating. And cheating, we are trying to demystify cheating. And this is the one issue, the one that threatens almost every relationship. And often you hear people ask, especially women, when they are falling in love, they are getting married, getting into a relationship, the question is, can I trust you with my heart? I have been heartbroken many times, and I don't want a repeat experience. And so when you look at popular literature, it gives the impression that African men in particular are wired to cheat. It seems as if cheating is a thing that is meant for men. And that reminds me of that biblical passage, the Gospel of St. John, the woman who is caught in adultery. You hear nothing about the man, isn't it? And maybe the man also had his own stone ready to shoot the woman. So when they say men, African men cheat, you are wondering whether they are cheating with other men or with whom they are cheating. But that's not the topic we are getting into. We want to understand how to deal with cheating. What is cheating in the first place? And in the course of this conversation, we'll also maybe get into how to deal with it in the end. Why do men cheat? I was just telling BK in the back that I had to Google and find out. When you just put the word cheating to Google it, you have an interesting, call it number of articles that will pop up. But always it's about why men cheat. And somebody gave up at least 9 reasons. We'll look at them. 9 reasons why men cheat. But again, this is the monster that we have to deal with. It's a monster that is present in the room. Very often we are afraid to talk about it. We let things fester before and they eat us up. The monster eats us up before we even know it. But when these are things we could have dealt with from the get-go, identify what the issues are and how to prevent this. Again, they always say prevention is better than cure. And we get in thinking that, well, I just trust and everything is going to be fine. No. Again, BK, welcome back. It's been a while. I'm glad to have you back on set.
It's good to be here, Lambert. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate it. You know what I always say. There are only 2 kinds of events. There are the things that are going right that we celebrate, and there are the things that we're putting right that we anticipate celebrating. And for as long as we keep on that lane, we can't go wrong, because all we need to do is adjust for the desired outcome. It's good to be here. It's great to see you.
The things that we celebrate and the things that we anticipate to celebrate. And we have talked a lot about these things. One thing that I have learned during this show is, again, we want to talk about the energy level. How's your energy level today?
It is absolutely fantastic. I feel like I've got a new lease of life. I just beat COVID, hands down. So, hey, what else can I say?
Right. So again, for the sake of the audience, we are glad to have BK back. BK, the reason why we did not have a show because last week BK was down. Yeah. But we are happy that he was able to come back to us strong and alive. And again, entering into our regular conversation, this safe space We have been talking about the context of these conversations has always been African immigrant men and relationships. That's a big one we have been dealing with. And we always want to give that context because there's a danger that somebody who joins us will think that we are talking about these things in kind of a you may think that we are biased in a certain fashion, and we are because we are dealing with men. But let's get into it, BK. Let's talk about cheating. This topic, cheating, demystifying. What is it about cheating that we want to demystify?
I like that question, Lambert. See, you did at the beginning. You said somebody asked you what the mystery is about cheating that needs to be demystified, and it's amazing because yes, we need to demystify it. When we talk about cheating, for instance, when I say I cheated, who did I cheat on? Or when I say you cheated or the other person cheated, who did they cheat on? Are you cheating on yourself or are you cheating on someone else? See, these are the things that this is my purview or my outlook on life. I take everything, I twist it around, turn it up, turn it about, give it a twist, a back flip it on all its sides, and I give it perspective. And what am I looking for here? I'm looking for empowering as opposed to disempowering perspective. See, because when I say I cheated on you, then you become the object of the conversation. And it's almost like, okay, I need to work to protect you, not cheat on you so your life can be better. What about what it is I do to myself when I go out and I transgress my own values? And before we continue, I just wanted to say this, Lambert. Just before we started, something dropped into my spirit. We are going to save a family today. We will save a marriage today. I don't know how we're going to do it, but that's our mission, and I'm confident it will happen. Just let me know. I just need to be sure that the mic is working right, because we are on a mission today.
Perfect.
Yes. So coming back to this whole cheating thing, I just want to say you can't talk about about cheating if there is no relationship. We agree, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So there's got to be a relationship, and we want to assume that the thing that holds a relationship is the love that brings two people together. And love is a journey. Love is it's embarking on a journey that is all about respect, patience, giving, and forgiving. That's where it all starts, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I guess it begs the question, do we understand what love is? When we come into that relationship, do we understand exactly what it is we're talking about? And to these people, to this couple that I believe we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so yes, he cheated. We're not glorifying it. Or she cheated. You asked the question, does anyone cheat alone? You want to assume that when we cheat, we're cheating with someone. And usually it is someone of the opposite sex. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about saying that we all have a responsibility to one another. We are each other's keepers. So it's not about the cheating. It has happened. The question is, why did it happen? And where do we go from here? How do we support you to get your household back to where it needs to be without making everyone a casualty? What are the things that make us cheat in the first place? And then what are the things that make it so hard for us to deal with it? What is it that makes it impossible for us to talk about it when it has happened? Okay, so I cheated on you. Did I do it in purpose or do it on purpose? See, because this is where I'd say to you, young lady, that if you think he went out and he deliberately cheated on you because he wanted to make your life miserable, then your own level of insecurity and the amount of healing that you need is so monstrous We really need to come together and have this conversation and take things back to where they need to be. Let's go back to the genesis of the world we live in. Let's look at the anatomy of a relationship, the anatomy and the physiology and the psychology and the emotion behind a relationship. How does it all start? So you have this young man, and I think we've talked about this before, Lambert. For a relationship to start, and this is definitely not an excuse. We're not making excuses here for anyone, but for a relationship to start, somebody has to go out to someone else, make a case, make a statement, be on their best behavior, express themselves. And then if they are lucky, a relationship starts. Are we on the same page? Do we agree?
Right.
Now let's assume that relationship does not come to fruition and this young man needs to get into another relationship. What happens? That whole repeat cycle. He needs to go out again on the prowl. He needs to impress this lady, go through the whole rigmarole. Eventually, there is a relationship. That was the standard, at least when we were growing up. Things have changed slightly today. You have women who go out chasing men, which is normal. I guess that is normal. I'm a bit old school. I prefer the relationship that just happens. Two people come together, they engage, they interact. There is that connection. And eventually they realize that it's going someplace. Something is happening. And that's the relationship born. But let's come back to the standard. A speaks to B. B is happy. A relationship happens. And then before long, that relationship breaks down. That whole process needs to start all over again. So you realize you've got somebody who repeats this cycle over and over each time there needs to be a relationship. Do we realize what's happening in the background? Of course, no, we don't. And we don't talk about it. What you do, what you practice is what you eventually become. So this is habit forming. There's a part of you that just gets in the habit. It's a part of you that gets into the routine of talking to a girl, and before long, or to a lady or someone of the opposite sex. And before long, this whole process adopts meaning and value in your life. It takes a certain meaning. It could be anything. It could be about power. It could be about control. It could be about significance. It could be some stress release. It could be any number of things. It could even become an addiction. You see, because when you get into a relationship, there is a connection, and that connection will build and release certain things within you. Your biochemistry, oxytocin, endorphins. When you're having an orgasm, for instance, what is an orgasm? How does it come about? What does it mean? This is one of the most powerful aphrodisiac. What's the expression? Help me here,
You're correct. Yeah. Aphrodisiac, yes.
aphrodisiacs. So you realize that when you have that experience and you have it for the first time, it sends shockwaves up and down your spine and leaves you thinking in directions and dimensions that you didn't even know was possible. You are touched in places and spots you didn't even know you had. So that's bound to take a certain meaning. And so you may even have triggers lying around that you do not understand what these triggers are. And it just means if you find yourself in a certain environment, then certain things start happening and that cascade kicks in, reflex action, that reflex action kicks in. And before you know it, you find yourself consciously or subconsciously talking to someone. It brings out the Dan Quayle within you. And then things start happening. So this is your life. And this is the part we call living the life. And everybody says, live your life before you get married. So when you're married, you can settle down. The trouble is, the point of marriage, you're coming in with all these impurities. You're coming in with all these addictions. You're coming in with all these challenges. They are not just going to go up in smoke. They're not just going to disappear. That is why love needs to be strong, because love is going to have to go against the current. It's going to have to go against this flow. These are the things as a couple you're going to have to deal with. Don't assume that because, oh, you went through some church or you went through some ceremony, you signed a piece of paper, it means your past has been erased. No, all you're saying is, I commit that I will be vulnerable. And with you, we will go down all the deepest, darkest corners and corridors of my life. We will pick and pull out all those skeletons and we will bring them in the open. And you will help me deal with them, not make me feel guilty about them. Just because you were on the other side of that platform, all you had to do was sit and wait for someone to come talk to you, right down to the point of marriage. All you did was sit and wait for someone to come talk to you. And I came and I spoke to you and you thought you were ready to get married, which means you are a step ahead. You're ready to move on. I'm coming with all these impurities. You're not the first lady I spoke to. You're not the second. For some men, you're probably, what, 100? Some would say 200. I was reading the documentation the other day. Someone actually said about 2,000. They dated 2,000 girls, 2,500 girls before getting married. Now, that is a lot. That's a lot of work you're going to have to do. That's a lot you're going to have to do to peel back the impurities, to peel back habits that would have formed, the reflexes that would have built that this person is not even aware of. And that's where the journey starts. So we'll look at how we deal with this going forward. How do you overcome a scenario where someone has cheated? I want us to come back to that question that I asked. Who's cheating on who?
So, BK, if you are just joining us, welcome to the Lambom Show. Today we are talking about cheating and we are trying to demystify that. So, BK, you have laid out some foundational things that I wanted us to focus on, because you gave the impression that the man has formed this habit of talking to women, going out to engage in the relationship. And because he has done that constantly, he has formed that habit, and that habit is not broken up when the person gets married. Did I get that correct?
That's just one piece of the puzzle. The puzzle is more complicated than that, but yes.
Okay, so this seems to be we should have an awareness. This is because we're talking about men. There's an awareness of the things that we have done. If somebody has dated 2,500 women before getting married, there's no guarantee that he's going to stop at the one he has gotten married to. And therefore, at the slightest provocation, he knows he has options. He can always go out to continue to dominate. And that is why. So is this an explanation as to why men cheat, or is an observation that people should take note of? What is it that causes men to constantly want to try? Because again, within the context of this show, we have said before that the male ego is one that constantly seeks to dominate. And dominate may not be the correct word, but wants to conquer. The lion wants to conquer the forest. And because the lion wants to conquer the forest, it is always seeking for opportunities to do that. And I think what I'm hearing you say is, as men, we have to be aware of the habits that we have formed, which habits have not been broken by the fact that we have gotten married. But because we have gotten married or in a relationship, because we are in a relationship, we now need to unpeel, unwind, take this back and be committed. Do I get that correct?
You get that 100% correct. And I would like to add to that whole question of vulnerability. You see, because it's not always about dominance. Sometimes we feel so insignificant. Sometimes we are vulnerable. And if that vulnerability becomes an insecurity, then we look for validation. And the person who gives us that validation is going to get the best of us if we are not mature in our own selves. You see, because in order to get into any kind of relationship, you need to define what it is you're doing in that space. There's a certain amount of awareness. It goes beyond awareness to a point of to consciousness, self-consciousness, and then obviously there is divine consciousness. What do I mean by this? Awareness is a state and a frame of mind which dwells a whole lot on the physical. What we can see, what we can smell, what we can taste, what we can touch, it appeals to our senses and we become aware of our environment. The things that give us pleasure, we gravitate towards. The things that direct us down the path of pain, we want to navigate away from. So it is as simple and as complicated as that. So if I'm dealing with somebody who makes me feel special, if I'm dealing with someone who makes me feel valued, if I'm dealing with someone who makes me feel accepted, who makes me feel heard, who puts me on top of my world, guess what? I will be more tempted, more inclined to open up to that person because they give me a listening ear. And once I start feeling comfortable talking to this person, I start building certain bonds, bonds. And these bonds obviously take the form of a relationship. And behind that relationship, there is an attachment. And if I'm not careful, with that attachment comes an addiction. I will share two anecdotal stories that put these in perspective. The first would be around smoking, and the second would be around music, incidentally. But let me just push this on a little, let me stretch this a little further. So imagine you're at home, you're dealing with this woman who is very successful. And of course, because she's successful, she's got her head screwed on. She will naturally be a no-nonsense woman. Is that a fair point?
Correct.
So there's that part of her, the go-getter, the fighter, who may not intend to be domineering, but she will come across as domineering. And depending on who her man is, if the man does not try to subdue her, which usually is the natural tendency or the response, then the man can just go in, he can literally recede in his shell. Correction, in any way, shape, or form, makes him feel dominated. He's either fighting back or he's receding to a place of vulnerability. And that could become an insecurity. That's where you stop feeling free with your spouse. You can't have certain conversations with your spouse. When it comes to the domain of sex, which is again a very touchy and a very twitchy subject, if he's not up to par in that particular department and she says something, or she even remotely behaves like she's not really in it, he's judging his performance and she doesn't need to say anything. He knows that he can't or he is not satisfying her. Do you see how this makes a man even more vulnerable? And if there is no communication, if nobody can take responsibility and you're not holding each other accountable for satisfying each other, for showing up for each other, then his vulnerability becomes an insecurity. And what happens if he still has his first, second, or 150th love, who sends a text message and goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm feeling lonely." He has no intentions of cheating at this particular point in time, but there is someone who's easier to talk to. There is some place that when he shifts to, he feels like a man again, and this person is vulnerable. This person needs someone who can lift them up. This person needs someone who can listen to them, unlike your wife who is busy working so hard at work and at home, making sure everything is right and it's all speak and span. And there's nothing you can say to this lady because she is just picture perfect. And what's the next thing she's going to say? "I killed myself for you, and this is how you pay me back? You're spending your whole time with this slut?" You don't realize you're killing and knocking a man who is already down. No, sweetheart, don't do that. Don't do that. When you see your man behaving in a way that is counterproductive, the one thing you want to think is that that behavior comes from a place of fear. It doesn't matter whether it is a man or a woman or your boss at work. If they are behaving in an authoritarian fashion, it's because they have lost self-control. And when you lose self-control, you try to control situations, people, circumstances, and places. And you can't do that. You can't control anything that is outside of the self, because anything that is outside of the self can only at best be influenced. It is your dynamic nature. It is the power that you carry inside to be you. You can't be you if you do not know you. So let's come and have this conversation so we get to find out who we are on the inside. Lambert, I'm not friends with your wife today, but if we become friends tomorrow, I will look at her in the eye and I'll tell her, hey, I love you. And I'll tell her in front of you, Lambert. Lambert, you've got an amazing wife. What's her name again? Sorry.
Melanie.
Melanie. I'll go, Melanie, you are an amazing woman. You are beautiful. Oh my goodness, Lambert, you're lucky. This is part of communication. You see, because when your friend starts telling your wife that she's beautiful, you're going to pay attention to your wife. I'm not saying that because I want to jump into her pants. No, I'm not interested. But that's the way I deal with the pressure within me, because otherwise I bottle that up. But she's a fine woman. Whether I talk about it or I do not talk about it does not make a difference. It doesn't change the fact that she's beautiful. It doesn't change the fact that she would knock this place out. That if she walks across a room, heads turn, eyebrows lift and shift. Now, if I pretend that I don't see that, like women usually do, what are you looking at? That is the beginning of problems, because you can't do that 24/7. You start building a certain pressure. You start making him conscious. When a man is self-conscious, that's the beginning of trouble, because there's a certain pressure that he's building in him. He can't admire a beautiful woman anymore, let alone compliment that woman. You start hearing things like, oh, so you're telling me I'm not enough. This is how we destroy our relationships. No, I want to be in a place where I can tell your wife in front of my wife that she's beautiful. I want to be able to tell your wife that, hey, I love you, Melanie. Was it Melanie?
Yes.
Melanie, I love you. You're an amazing woman. You've got such a precious soul. And if I can say that, and you hear me say it, and everybody hears me say it, and everybody else feels free saying that, then guess what? We all learn to appreciate our wives. And we all take responsibility, not just for our actions, but I become accountable. I hold you accountable to your wife. I hold your wife accountable to you as well. And guess what? What would we be building there? See, I can see you smiling, which means you're looking at things in a direction you've never seen before, and it's already having an effect on you. That's the world we're trying to create.
Yeah, but BK, I have a problem with that. Because,
tell me what the problem is.
The problem I have with that is simple, that when my wife hears you say that she's beautiful and it's something that she has not heard from me, I mean, let me use a practical example. So I have a friend. I mean, I was dating a girl, and my friend brought a purse for her, and she turned around and said, I wish Lambert could also be doing this. And I'm like, a purse? How about the other things that I've been doing? You know? And I'm like, so is it that you are paying attention, this one thing that a friend has done, which may be something that you have been dying to have that I never knew, and all the little things that I've done before, they don't count anymore, isn't it? Because, and you now wish I could be like the friend. I could never be like that friend. There are things
No,
that
you can't. Lambert, you can never be like that friend. And spoiler alert, go buy Melanie a purse. She will never wear it. She will never carry it. She will never take it anywhere. So it had nothing to do with that purse. See,
this
it's
was
too
before
common.
married, so it was not even.
No, I understand. No, forget. I know. We just had to use a name, right?
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter. This is where communication starts. And this is where you start realizing that the only thing she could talk about at that particular point in time was what? The purse. Lambert, it's not about the purse. What she's saying, let me translate, is, I wish Lambert were this caring. The purse is a placeholder for something else. All she's saying is she has sought your attention and she either does not get it or she does not get it the way she wants it. See, because we're good at giving people what it is we want for ourselves, as opposed to what it is that meets them at their point of need. And for as long as we make these mistakes, we walk past and we talk past each other and we do not communicate, or we fail to communicate. And that's where the relationship starts going south. So let's come back to meaning. Cheating. What does it mean to people? What does it? I wrote a few things before we started. I wrote power, I wrote control, I wrote significance, I wrote stress release, which means if someone is under a lot of duress, stress and distress, under an enormous amount of pressure, they're going to have to release that pressure, right?
Yeah.
Now, we all know that we're spiritual beings spiritual beings with a physical experience, true?
Correct.
And we get to experience our spirituality when we connect and fall in love. There's that energy, there's that power, there's that force of attraction that we can't really explain, but it is just there. Butterflies in the stomach, lightness all over. You don't want to eat, you don't want to sleep. That person becomes everything, including oxygen. That's that spiritual energy, and it is so potent. The only way our physicality can consummate that spirituality is through what? Copulation, sensuality. That's the way that happens. That translation happens through sensuality, and it is expressed and manifest through an orgasm. That's when we get set on fire. Then you experience that orgasm and you're not sure what. That's the power of creation, by the way. So it is so potent. It doesn't matter what pain you are. It's the best painkiller on the planet. So when that happens to you once, guess what? The next time you're stressed, you want a release. If it's your wife who stresses you and there's someone who's available, guess what? You just open up a can of worms. I'm not saying we have an excuse to be weak. I'm just telling every woman, if you and your husband have not groomed yourself to a point of maturity where you can handle challenges and differences by communicating, by talking about them, by thrashing issues, be careful how you hurt each other. If you can't handle pain, be careful how you hurt the other, because they're not mature enough to take it. You become co-creators, and whatever happens in that relationship, you both created it. It's not about him, it's not about you. See, because we don't do you and me, we don't do them and the other. We just do, we're doing well or we're not doing well. How do we adjust for desired outcome? If you're failing, we're both failing. If I'm failing, we're both failing. If we start looking at life from this perspective, there are lots of things that would otherwise have gone wrong that will stop going wrong, because it stops being it continues to be your responsibility. But guess what? I'm accountable to you. And if it's not happening, what am I doing to help you deal with whatever it is that you're struggling with? As opposed to jumping on the wagon of, oh, he did it to me, which is just an expression of my own insecurity. Because that's all that it is. He didn't do anything to me. I did not do anything to you. No, my values are rubbish. My values are not up to par. So I went and I demeaned myself and I cheated. What has that got to do with you? Absolutely nothing. Because if I'd done it to you, then I'll sure, appropriate response, go and cheat as well. But then when you go and cheat, are you doing it to me, or are you doing it to yourself? See, this is where I say demystifying, because the thinking around this whole cheating starts changing. And once we make that shift, we become more responsible than we otherwise would have been. When I realize that it's me that I betray when I cheat and not you. I talked about anecdotal stories. If you want to chime in before I go into this anecdotal stories, that'd be amazing. So over to you, Lambert.
No, again, I think the foundation that you laid there, this about the third edition, but fundamentally, the demystification is taking place in terms of the fact that we have often defined cheating in terms of the other, when cheating is itself, bringing down your own values. So it's not just the other person that you're letting down, you are also letting down yourself, isn't it? So it is, we have often looked at it in terms of the other, when we should also, in the same breath, look at it in terms of the self. And one layer up, whatever happens is not just one person, it's also both of us. If I'm failing, it is both of us failing. If I'm succeeding, it is both of us succeeding. And I think that it is important to look at that, because at that level, you said it earlier on, when a vulnerability becomes a weakness, then the other person starts seeking recognition. And whoever gives that recognition, then that is where the person is. We are human beings, isn't it? And that is why the example that we used earlier on, when the compliment comes from somewhere else, if you are not matured enough to be able to get the message, it can crush you.
Yes.
Exactly. So again, both failing, both succeeding. And Adeline says something just before you come on. Adeline
I just
says,
read it.
some of those good compliments to a friend's wife can lead to extramarital relationship. Some even go as far as asking for her number.
Yes. Adeline, if you could just pop it back on the screen. So Adeline, I have this thing that I always say. Let's work towards that which we want to achieve and never focus on that which we want to avoid. Because the moment you see, thought is energy, and energy follows thought. The moment you start focusing on the things that you do not want or the things you want to avoid, you create an environment that will be conducive for those same things to happen. What's the flip side of this? Your husband has become so self-conscious, he can't even as much as look at another woman because of the eye he would get, the stare he would get. Adelina, no, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Those cold, frozen or freezing stares that could knock you out cold. They send cold shrivels up and down your spine. You don't know what hit you. You just feel pain all over, and it's your spouse's eyes, or a jealous husband or a jealous wife's eyes on you. So the question is, do you want people to come to a place where they can express themselves, exchange gifts and compliments? Because I want to believe that's exactly what happens at Christmas between two friends, two families. You exchange gifts. Now, these gifts in and of themselves are compliments. These gifts are telling you, I love you, I care about you. They're telling you, you're amazing people, I want to spend time with you. That's exactly what these gifts say. Would you disagree with me, Adeline? So if you can say it through the vehicle and the handle of a gift, what is it that stops you saying it outright? And you come to a place where we all are mature. So I like the fact that you brought this up. So Lambert, some of these good compliments to a friend's wife can lead to extramarital relationships. Why don't we say some of these good compliments can wake the spouse up or the husband to make him realize that he's got something which others notice, acknowledge, and it's important he takes good care of it so that attention doesn't come from someplace else. Some even go as far as asking for her number. Adeline, sweetheart, it is just a number. So the number is not a problem. It is what you do with that number. It is what you do with that number that gives it meaning. And I'll always say this, nothing has meaning until we give it meaning. Adeline, for instance, I'm going to tell you this, and it's coming from my heart. Adeline, I love you. The fact that you showed up here means that it means you care. It means you've got a heart. Now, if I said I was in love with you, that's a different thing. So there's a difference between saying I love you and I am in love with you. I'm in love with you means, okay, cool. I'd like to go places with you. I would like to spend the rest of my life with you. It has a completely different connotation. And if I'm saying that to you and I'm saying the same thing to my spouse, then there is a conflict of interest. I need to go grow up. I need to go make up my mind and decide exactly what it is I'm doing with my life and what direction I'm going in and why. Is confusion a bad thing? No, absolutely. It absolutely is not a bad thing. Confusion simply tells me that I'm in a place in my life where I need to take a decision. It simply tells me that I thought I had values, but those values need to be either redefined, streamlined, and what's the term? I love that expression. I always use it: defined, refined, or streamlined. And this is what we do throughout in life. You see, because you and I have one true identity, Adeline, and that identity is love. And that love brings with it light. What do I mean? When we break down love, what is it? Love is nothing other than infinite patience. You see, because if I truly love you, then I will listen to you. And to be able to listen to you, I need to be infinitely patient with you. So in a place and in a state and framework of love, I only do two things. I can only give or I forgive. What does forgiving mean? Forgiving means I stand for giving. For telling the truth, for giving, I stand for telling the truth, I stand for giving. So if I'm giving all the time, I'm not looking at receiving. Giving is who I am. My pride, my prerogative, and my priorities is to ensure that that I create an environment which is conducive for your growth and for my growth. See, because if you're growing, then I'm growing. If you're not growing, there's no way I am going to grow. It's out of the question. It's a revolutionary idea. The only reason there is breakdown in communication is because the only reason there is a conflict between two people and misunderstandings is because they stop to communicate. And why do they stop to communicate? It's because one or both of them are vulnerable, or one person feels cheated, one person feels misunderstood. Why are they feeling misunderstood? Because whatever love was there has become selfish as opposed to selfless. So love only has meaning when it is out, because my identity is love. So when I am in that state and frame of mind or in that place, all I do is I give, I forgive, we procreate. If we are married, we create. If we're running a business together. And in the process of all of that, respect obviously is a byproduct. Patience in its infinite form is another byproduct. And these are the things that bring with them healing. Sure, you would agree with me.
Yeah,
Have
because
an environment. If I could just say this, Lambert,
sure,
sure you would agree with me that if you have an environment that is fraught with giving, forgiving, creating an environment which is conducive for growth, procreating, obviously having babies if two people are married, patience and understanding, the respect that goes with it, not the abusive respect where I understand respect to mean when I say jump, you say how high. No, I'm talking about mutual respect. I'm talking about values. Unconditional love. We discuss sacred things. There are no taboo subjects. And finally, we push each other to grow. That is the kind of respect that I'm talking about. Mutual. And if we have that, there's no way healing will not happen. There's no way you will not run to me first when you have a question, when you have a challenge, when you feel insecure, when you feel vulnerable. I'm your first port of call. So I don't get distracted because I've got someone. I've got someone who's looking up to me, and I've got someone that I look up to. See, because I too will be looking up to you, and we've got each other. And when that happens, then we can now have space in our lives for sustainable friendships and relationships with our friends that we are hopefully not married to. And we can complement these friends because we love them. We've got deep connections. They add value in our lives. And we know that if we abuse of that connection, then things will go wrong. Because what happens when I sleep with your wife, for instance, Lambert? I start looking behind my back every 2 minutes. When we are together, I'm uncomfortable. I can't smile with her the way I used to, at least for someone who still has a conscience. There will be that guilt that will be in there. And for someone who knows how to look, they will see. And so you ask me, am I ready to sacrifice all of that just for a moment of what sensual gratification, which I will regret, which will be a passing fleet I will regret? Am I ready to sacrifice what could be a lifetime of bliss, cordiality, camaraderie, for something that will last a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, and then turn into doomsday? No, thank you very much. And this is where consciousness comes into play, which is different or superior to awareness, because awareness is all about the senses, it's all about that gratification, instant gratification, and that's the world we live in. So to come back to what we said at the beginning, two people coming together, it's about agreeing that they are both imperfect, they are both cheaters. Sorry, because we are all cheaters before we get married. Have we been lying? We've been cheating. Why do we make the whole sexual thing so important? It's not any different from lying. There's no big sin or small sin. If we're going to be consistent, let's be consistent across the board. Let's help each other. Let's help one another grow. It's not about naming and shaming. No, it's about understanding that we live in a society that is not conducive for the very things that we all aspire towards. And somebody needs to start. Somebody needs to take the lead. And we realize that no, if there's a family out there that's struggling today because one or both parties cheated, they become our responsibility. It's not about who did what to who, why, and when, and with whom. None of that is relevant. It has happened. How do we make the right and the proper adjustments to take this, to heal this couple and to take them to where they need to be? How do we surround them with so much love and warmth that they will want to do the right thing because they know that they are accountable to us, their community, and their friends? That's the question, and that is the challenge to every last one of us. So my plea and my plight to every last one of you here, all eight of you, and those who will be watching later, never point a finger at anyone and say, look at that one, he cheated. You don't understand. You don't know. You have never walked his shoes or her shoes. You don't know what these people are going through. You don't know what they are struggling with. I will give two anecdotal stories that will put this in context. Lambert, feel free to chime in and to jump up.
So before you get to the two anecdotal stories, we have 13 minutes. Finish the stories, but I'd like for us to focus on one thing today.
Sure.
Let's get back to defining what does it mean to cheat.
What does it mean to cheat?
Yes, what is it? When people say you cheated on me, because you just talked about it in terms of sex, isn't it? That's yes. The general thing.
Yes. So.
But it goes beyond that.
It goes beyond that, Lambert.
In Adeline's context, some other woman will consider that taking a woman's number is cheating.
It's already cheating.
Yes.
That's exactly. Yes.
And that falls in line with what the Bible says, isn't it? If you look at somebody lustfully, you have already committed.
You've already cheated. Yes. So let's come back.
What is it? Yes.
Yes.
So and again, I wanted to bring you back, and I think let's just focus on that for today. Then we can get the other things, because you mentioned something about power, control, significance, stress, and those are reasons why people cheat, isn't it? But let's first of all understand what is cheating.
Thank you. Remember what we always say when we come to definitions, Lambert. We can go to the clouds and come back. We can go to the mountains. We can go skiing. We can do backflips. If you were to call 1,000,000 or 1,000 people and you put that question to them, what is cheating? You would get at least 2 million answers, because some people will actually have 2 or 3.5 answers to give, to share with you. So nothing means anything until we give it meaning. I like to say that again. Words are neither the best purveyors. They're not the best purveyors nor conveyors of meaning. Yes. And we need to understand that words are just placeholders. These placeholders seek to take what we call an experience. It captures it in these placeholders we call words, and it tries to give it meaning. But it's a dynamic continuum. We are energy. And this energy will flow. When this energy flows, it has meaning based on what it is we're experiencing at any point in time, how we translate that energy into emotion, which is energy in motion, and how that translates into our feelings. And so it is the underlying feeling that will empower and engender an action. It generates an action, enough power to get us to do something. So if you're not coming from a strong place of being where you know your identity, then you become vulnerable to your circumstances and to your environment. That's why values are very important. So come back to the question, what is cheating? Cheating will mean different things to different people based and subject to what their values and value systems are. So you can't have a universal definition if you don't have a universal value system, which is why when you get into the religious context, then cheating has a specific meaning. Man and wife to the exclusion of other men and women. But even so, when you get into that context, it's not happening. That fabric is long broken because we have more divorces than we have marriages. What it used to be 1 in 4, today it is 1 in 2. So it's not working. Tells us that laws don't do it. No, it has to come from the heart. We need to make an internal shift, and that is the only thing that will work. Let us move away from religion. Let's move away from all these things that become problems in and of themselves because they bring judgment. Let's come from a place where we understand that we've got value systems, and those value systems are driven by love. Because if we understand love, then we have demystified and we have broken everything else. So what is cheating? Cheating is me not being true to myself. It has nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing to do with you. I have not betrayed you when I cheat. I have betrayed myself. I have myself to deal with before I have you to deal with. I made a commitment to be there for you. Now, I can't be there for you if I can't even be there for myself. So for me to cheat on you, I need to cheat on me first, and I would have cheated on myself twice because I would have let you down in the process. And it's just an indication that I'm not quite where I need to be. I'm still on that journey. The question is, am I man enough to look at you in the eye and say, hey, I fell through here. If we need to change the word, let's change it. See, because the word cheating in and of itself is such a trigger for some people. It's a conversation killer. So if we need to do whatever it is we need to do to make it easy to be a conversation that can be had, because once you take the conversation out of the table, there is no solution, there are no remedies. And if we give it the meaning of, oh no, you betrayed me, it's not about you, grow up. What about the person who put themselves in harm's way? What is it that will make a man cheat? A married man, for that matter, who has got kids? See, these are the questions that I ask myself. What is it that will make a man who has got kids, he knows that his entire family is on the line, and he goes out and he cheats? Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. And each time he's apologizing for it. Is that pretense? It is not. Can we jump into these anecdotal stories now so I can put and lace and craft and splunk meaning into this?
Stacy, welcome. Karen, welcome. And Stacy says, oh, this is fantastic. And before now, great show. I missed the opening and I've been pinching myself since I joined the show. Well, you can go back and watch when we are done. So, BK, great. Yeah. Words don't have meaning until we give them meanings, isn't it? Yes. Let's get to your story, then I'll come back to what I wanted to ask you. So,
Lambert, do you smoke?
I don't.
Did you used to smoke?
No.
Okay. Now we're going to pretend I smoke, and I'll build a story around the fact that I smoke. So I'm this lonely guy. I'm craving. I'm wallowing in self-pity, and let me look for an expression. I am lamenting in the confines of my own solitude. I feel trapped, locked in bondage. I don't know which way to go. I don't know what direction to turn. I have taken myself hostage. Life has absolutely no meaning. I can't stand smoking, by the way. It is repugnant. It is disgusting. I lost my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister to smoking because they were all in an accident. This is just a story I'm making up. They were all in an accident. And what was the cause of that accident? Dad was trying to light a cigarette and he killed everybody. I go out into the world. I'm lonely. I meet a group of friends. Everybody else treats me like dirt, but then all of a sudden I've met these people and they accept me. We are hanging out together. They're not the best of company. But guess what? Every last one of them smokes. Remember, I hate smoking. I can't stand smoking. It's the most, it brings back these painful, these gory, painful memories, these decrepit memories. The reason I lost everything that I loved to cigarettes. Now I'm faced with a group of people, all of whom smoke, and that's all that I've got in the world. What happens? I'm going to have to belong. I want to belong. I've got a chance at life. What am I going to do? Wallow in pity for the rest of my life? Surely no. So we're hanging out and we hang out on a daily basis. Hey, I can run away from my pain. I've got these people and they are all chain smokers. What is the very first thing that happens? I'm going to have to change the meaning and the representation of cigarettes in my mind. From something that was abhorrent, I'm going to have to normalize it first. This is what circumstances do to you. And this is real. This is real. This is the real world we're talking about. If I had an option, then I would have had an option. I like to connect this with cheating. So some women will go, oh, I'm proud of my man. My man doesn't cheat and all whatnot, so I'm out of the woods. Well, I'm going to ask you the question. Don't be complacent. There's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot of growth to be done. See, because your man may just be faithful or loyal because a man is as faithful as his options. And if he has no options, then he will never cheat because he can't. This is not to rain on anyone's parade. It's just to say that don't point a finger at someone else because you think you're in a good place. None of us is in a good place. Let's keep being each other's keeper. And when we see it, let's not make a mockery of it. Let's not laugh at it. Let's not point fingers. Let's understand that people are in pain and people struggle. Let's come around these people and help them heal. Back to the story. Sorry for the digression. So I'm with this crew. Now I've changed. So I've just normalized smoking because normalizing it dealt with a significant proportion of the pain that I carry on the inside. But I still don't smoke. Once I normalize, that's the first step. What's going to happen after that? I will take a fag just for the fun of it. Hey Francis, can I have that fag? Then I'll take a drag, and then I'll cough, and we'll all laugh, and it's fun, right? Next thing, they're all stopping over at my place. So we're doing all the rounds, and it's fun, and we party, and life is good. What do I do next? I'll buy a pack of cigarettes and I throw them around for when my friends come around. So I don't smoke myself, but hey, let it just be there for when they come around in case someone has run out. There's enough to go around for everyone. Until this solemn day, I come back from work and I'm bored. And I'm like, hey, I might as well pick up a stick. So I do that and I smoke. Then it becomes a habit. Every day I do that. But in my subconscious, guess what? I'm doing it willfully. It's intentional. I can stop anytime. So it's okay. It's not bad. I'm not a chain smoker. I'm not addicted. 3 months down the line, it's a cold, solemn, boring Sunday. And I say to myself, oh, let me just have a cigarette for the fun of it. I look around and there's none. I start searching. And before I know it, it's midnight with a blizzard outside, thunderstorm, and I'm driving looking for services so I can buy cigarettes. And that is when I realize I am addicted. Before that, I thought it was just something that I did in passing. I thought it was just something I was doing for the fun of it until I tried to stop it. Now replace this cigarette with the dating that we talked about and the person who just got married. He thinks, oh well, when he marries, he will stop. No. These habits had gotten so entrenched. See, because we're talking about neural networks in the brain, we're talking about synaptic connections, neurons that wire together, fire together. That is how memory is built. That is how addiction takes its rise, and it lies there. There is a trigger. All you need is the trigger, and it sets off that automatic response. And you and I have absolutely no control over, because it is a reflex action. That is an addiction. It needs to be dealt with, and the person in question needs help. And we know how it is when you say, I'm seeing a therapist. Nobody wants to have that conversation because it is a taboo subject. So let's not call it therapy. Let's not even call it counseling. I call it a strategic intervention, because all we're doing is having a conversation. We're verbal elating, we're interrelating, and we're having a good time. And I'm resolving energies within you just through the conversation. As some of you are getting healed right now, because I know some of you are in pain, and that was the purpose of this thing, to heal you and to heal your family and to pass this on to someone so they get healed. All of this is happening, but you did not have to take a single drug. All you got exposed to, all you experienced was love and acceptance, and that lack of judgment, which is all you've known your entire life. And we're telling you that stops today, because we're not pointing a finger at you. For when we do, 3 points right back at us to say, you are our responsibility, and we're going to make you our mission. Healing starts now, not tomorrow, not yesterday, not next week. It starts now. And the beauty is, it's all talking. We talk, we exchange energies, we build synergies. You feel relaxed. At some point, you take deep breaths, and you don't realize that that's the healing happening there. No, we're not going to sort a particular switch that will turn a particular light bulb on, and you say, oh, I'm healed. No, when healing happens, you will not know that it happened. Because all the things that you think are the problems that you carry today, those are just smokes. It's just the smoke screen. The real fire is someplace else. And it's in conversation, it's in verbal elating. It is going to all those places, those dark nooks and crannies where you never want to go, those places you consider taboo. When I say discuss sacred things, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We go down those dark corridors, we open those closets, we pull the skeletons, and we burn them out. And that is what healing is all about. Why would I say we discuss sacred things? Do you think it's because I want to be in your business? No, I don't care about your business, but I care how the things you think about, I care how they translate into energy, emotion, and how they become feelings, and what those feelings do to you. Are they empowering you, or are they disempowering you? Are they draining you? Are they motivating you, or are they uplifting you? That is why I say we need to have those conversations and go to those deep, dark places. See, because when you make it taboo, that's where all your demons go to hide, because they know they are protected. They come out, they wreak havoc, and when it's time to have a conversation, they disappear, and you protect them. It all stops today. I want to talk about the second anecdote. It is a more important one.
Okay, go ahead. I wanted to welcome Jane. Jane has been a great show. Missed you these last weeks. Jane, I'm envious that you don't miss me. I'm missing only BK. But can cheating be justified? Is it ever okay to cheat? So we'll come back to that, because I think that's the same thing, Anastasia, in a different context. Cheating is just one symptom of a problem. I think you're saying that one must take their mind off the cheating by minimizing it, so that the real problem can be dealt with. So, BK, go to your story, then we'll close up by answering these questions.
No, we're not closing up. We'll keep going till 4 a.m. Let me take the question. Let's go back to
Jane.
Let's take Jane's question. Can cheating be justified? Jane, we're not judging. We're not making it right. We're not making it wrong. All we're doing is adjusting for desired outcome. Cheating is what cheating is. It causes pain. Does it cause pain? Yes, it does. If it causes pain, do we need to do something about the pain that we have caused? Does someone need to be responsible, and does someone need to take accountability, be accountable? Absolutely. Can we identify our roles? Who's supposed to be responsible for what and who's supposed to be held accountable to what? Can we just understand that it's a partnership here and not spend a whole lot of time pointing fingers to say who did what with whom, why, when, and how? See, because when we go down that lane, there are no answers. There are just more problems. Why did it happen? Okay. It happened because we failed each other. It happened because there are conversations we needed to have had way before we got married that we did not. It happened because even after having gotten married, there are certain things we would rather shove under the carpet because we thought it was I thought it was none of your business and you thought it was none of my business. And here it is nipping us in the butt. So, hey, let's just wake up. We both failed. It happened because, I didn't know that's who you were because, I wasn't paying attention. I was too focused on the things that I wanted from this marriage. I wanted to build a home. And all I saw, in fact, when I married you, I just saw this tool. I saw an object. I saw a box that I was ticking. You were not particularly important at that time. I decided what your role was going to be. I just needed to build my home and have my kids. And now I realized it doesn't work that way. There are certain things we needed to build. We had to build a foundation. We skipped the foundation and we went and we started building the house. In fact, we forgot the house. We put a roof first and we realized that it was all cataclysmically going wrong. There's no harm in things looking like they're going wrong because we don't fail. The only time we fail is when we stop and give up. The only thing we ever do is we adjust for desired outcome. Life's not about your spouse. I'm sorry to say. Life's not about your kids. They will grow up and they will move on. And if you're addicted to your kids, you will stall their growth. Life's not about your sibling. Life's not about your friends. At the same time, all these implements, all these vehicles are the most important things around you because in the grand scheme of things, they are the ones that will test you. They will make sure that the best of you comes out from within you. Think about it. When you have a child, that child pees on you, pulls on you, wheezes on you, causes you sleepless nights. When was the last time you took it back to the shop? No, you did not. You would wake up in the morning, you would pick it up, you would look at its cute little face, and you'd go, oh my goodness. And you have not slept. So the child is the first thing that shows you that there is something called unconditional love. It's not about what the child is doing or not doing. It's just the fact that the child is there. It doesn't need to dry clean the house. It doesn't need to cook food. It just being there is enough for you to be elated. It's enough for you to come alive. It's enough for you to be on fire. The next closest thing is your husband. So with the child, you get to experience until you get to understand, embrace, greet, meet unconditional love. Your husband does that to you as well, or your spouse. The honeymoon period, the butterflies and all. That's God's big plan. See, God is amazing. He's wise. He knows what the objective is to turn you into pure love, where you can look at anybody, doesn't matter who they are, stranger, enemy, foe, and you love them genuinely. I mean, really love them as you would your kid. Notice that with your spouse, you come to that place where it's all about them. It's when things start going wrong, then you two start whoring. Oh no, I gave you this, you did not give it back, you did not reciprocate. No, he doesn't need to reciprocate. Give it because that's who you are. Don't give it because you expect it. That's whoring, that's prostitution. You can't be prostituting with your husband. Hold him to values. Give him a reputation to live up to. Applies to your husband, applies to your wife, both spouses. I will ensure that I always give you a reputation to live up to. I will always be the change that I seek so you can emulate. You can look at me and want to be like me, because otherwise my light will be so bright you will not be able to withstand me, and you may have to kick me out or you may have to leave. And those are the options. I'm not going to stoop. I'm not going to sink to a level below my standards because you extended an invitation. Because once I do that, no, I just used you as an excuse to do what I was comfortable with. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get more complicated. So, can cheating be justified? Absolutely not. But no, when we ask that question, there's such a thing as a loaded question, Jane, sweetheart. There's such a thing as a loaded question. Just because you ask the question, you bring a certain energy into life. But yes, it can't. No, it can't be justified. Is it ever okay to cheat? Why would it be okay to break somebody's heart? Is it good? Is it bad? Is COVID bad? Well, of course not. COVID is not bad. I am alive now. I've got a fresh lease of life. It's almost like it came and it cleaned, it did some cleansing within me. It took every other thing out. And we know that COVID, because of COVID, lots of people have come together as well. Lots of people have come. There's been a lot of community. There's been a lot of COVID in and of itself is supposed to be bad, but it's generated so much good. So is it bad or is it good? So it sometimes we get locked and lost in the detail. We major in minor things, and the invitation here is for us to start minoring in those minor things and let us major in the things that really matter. If something doesn't look right, what are we doing to put it right? Not what are we doing to point a finger, name and shame, polarize, and all of that. All it does is it brings discord and it makes it a whole lot harder. See, I would like to think that my couple is better than your couple. No, far from it. There are going to be things that I will be better at in my space. There will be things you will be better at in your space. Now, okay, that question has been answered. Can we go to the final anecdote?
Yes.
Okay, this is a true story and this is my life. That is why I would look at you all in the eye and I will say, I will never point a finger at anyone who is struggling with connections, especially if they are illicit connections or extracurricular. I'm not going to call it cheating. I'll call it extracurricular connections. So this is a guitar, and this is my second love. Why did I introduce you to my guitar? So, once upon a time, I had a friend. This friend was they're an amazing musician. They play some of the instrument. And I'll tell you, when we got together and we played, the choir of angels in heaven rejoiced. I play in church a lot, and I usually do this solo thing, and I pick a lot. I love it. It's a passion. Now, the harmony that we would put together, it was out of this planet. We used to get invitations to go out and play, and we would do that. I got addicted to that scene. I got addicted to that connection, and it was amazing. Look, I came alive in ways that I didn't even know what was possible. You would be playing and you would feel so fulfilled. I'm talking about the joy that comes from the inside, consumes your inner, your innings, and takes you and then overwhelms you. You just came alive. Now, at some point, again, just like the cigarette, that person was unavailable. Whenever I wanted to play and they were unavailable, I missed the music. But of course, I had the music So it's not the music that I was missing. I missed their instrument. But then again, their instrument is just an instrument. There are a million of such instruments on the market. So it's not the instrument that I missed. I missed the person who was behind the instrument. So I made a connection. There were synaptic connections in my brain that I didn't even know existed. And whenever they were available, I made myself available. It didn't matter what it is I had to do, what it is that was planned with the family. I would find a way to turn that on its head so I could be available to consummate that experience. So notice there was a fine line, a thin one I was already crossing, and I didn't have a clue I was crossing that line. I would sit and I'd be missing the music and I'd be smiling at the experience. But obviously now I'm smiling and I'm thinking about somebody. At the time, it doesn't strike you as anything is wrong, but these connections are being built. And that's how real it gets. I struggled with that for a while. And I had to ask myself what it is my values were. I had to remind myself what my values were. Now, how did I meet my wife? Growing up at the age of, how old was I? I was 12 at the time, afraid of women. I couldn't even hold a woman's hand. I was afraid she might get pregnant. But even at that age, I wouldn't date you.
I'm beginning to doubt your sacred heartness, but sorry to interrupt that.
Let's not go there. Let's not open that kind of words. Yeah. So I was a very shy person. I was a good dancer, so I was always on stage doing all the fancy things, and at least as I heard later, I got a lot of the attention. People loved me and all whatnot. I was oblivious of all of that because dancing for me was a passion. And when I went on stage, it was about me going on there to have fun. I wasn't doing it to entertain anyone. I loved dancing. So I would dance for me and I would dance my soul out. And so for me, I would not date you if I didn't think you were marriage material. But of course, I wasn't dating anybody to marry them. I was 12. What did I know of marriage? So I had certain values which I didn't fully understand. I didn't smoke because most of my friends were excited about smoking and they were crazy about smoking. I didn't drink alcohol for the same reason. So for me, it was pride for everyone to be, sipping gin and juice, and I'd be on a bottle of water or juice. Simple, as simple as that. I didn't run after women recklessly just for the same reason that everybody else was excited about them. So I started doing a lot of the right things for the wrong reasons, and then they became interwoven in the fabric of my being. And so that's how I dated three, because this is my real story, right? I dated about three women. I think that includes my wife. Maximum, I'd say four, before I got married. And so, having gotten married, I then inculcated this new value system: unconditional love, discuss sacred things. So, if you're my friend, I'm sure those of you who are my friends here, if we're friends, for us to be friends, it means there are no taboo areas, none whatsoever. Is it your period? We will talk about it. And for me, it's simple. So I've got a simple value system. Unconditional love, so I don't judge you. And it's same thing with Mindset Boulevard, the actual strategic intervention. So no discrimination. Whether you're a stranger, you're my spouse, you're my kids, you are coming for an intervention, it's the same principles. Unconditional love. I don't judge. You can do and swear, do whatever it is you need to do. We will discuss sacred things. So there's no topic that is taboo, no place we can go, for the simple reason that when we have taboos, then we protect our demons. That's where our demons usually would go to hide. And if I'm your friend, I expect you to call me, even if it's 2 a.m. at night if you're struggling. Now, if you're going to call me at 2 a.m. and there are things we can discuss here during the day, and we're not discussing them then we can't really be friends. See, because if we deal with all these things upstream, then we won't have a problem downstream because they would have been dealt with before they get to a stage where we're having to engage or activate crisis management. And that's how my relationships are. The third operating principle is push and challenge each other to grow. So while I say you can swear, you can prounce, you can trounce and do whatever it is you want, it doesn't mean I'm not going to challenge you. See, because if we're friends, it's because we share the same or similar value systems. So I'll hold you accountable. I'll be responsible for my life and what I do in that space, ensure it's conducive. I'll hold you accountable to who you tell me you are. You say this is what you want to do. So if you say this is who you are and this is what you want to do and this is the step you're taking next, do you see how it is taking you someplace else? Because I'm good at connecting dots like that. I can see things between and betwixt from the beginning to the end. I'll see 7, 10, 20, 25 steps ahead and people are still here. I guess that's what the gift is. So those are the 3 operating principles that guide me between and betwixt. And that is what I had to go back to pry myself from a situation that had taken me hostage and I was really, honestly, genuinely struggling with. You see, because that's the thing with this connection. It gets so strong. It's spiritual energy. And it takes a life of its own. And it starts fighting you. You know what the right thing to do is. But it is so overpowering and so overwhelming. You find yourself doing the very things you say you do not want to do. You find yourself going in that direction. And you have to pry and pull. And you have to remind yourself and pray. So it's a real internal battle. We have all been in situations where we find ourselves doing the very things we say we are not going to do. You come out of the house, you say you want to go do this. Instead of turning right, because that is where whatever it is you said you wanted to go do is, you turn left and you go and you engage something else and you get into trouble. You end up with a flat tire. What were you doing there to have a flat tire? Or 4 flat tires, as the case may be sometimes. But so yes, I had to come back to these values. I had to ask myself, so this is what I have got. If I go with this urge, because the urge was strong, if I go with this urge, what happens downstream? You hurt everybody, you lose and sacrifice everything that you've got. And then what happens? Now, it's not a logical thing. It's not something that you can talk and reason yourself away from. No. It starts with the mind, spirit, the meaning that you give it. And then you get to a point where you make and you take responsibility for everyone. And you make them your responsibility and you resolve, as in you take a sworn oath to yourself that you will ensure that everybody comes out of this situation empowered. So everybody becomes your responsibility. You decide to hold or to define everybody as a victim, as vulnerable. And so if anything were to go wrong, you would have used and abused those people. I think that is how I got out of that one. See, I'd look at everyone involved and I'd say to myself, there's no way I can let these people down. There's no way I can let myself down. Because if I do, then I'm no different from this person who incidentally had confided in me about how used and abused they had been. Then you end up being the same person doing to them what the rest of the world did to them just because they confided in you. So that's how I tapped into that energy and it became my strength. And at some point, Mindset Boulevard was born. That's the end of that anecdotal story. From that day, I don't point fingers. Even before then, I never pointed fingers. But when I went through that experience, I had a reason, a grounded reason, never to point a finger at anyone. Over to you, Lambert. You're on mute, Lambert, so nobody's hearing you.
To say any other thing will be taking away from that great, call it great example. And it takes a lot of courage, I think, to be able to do that. And maybe because of the strategic intervention, you know, talking about these things can be very, very difficult. But for a person like you who's a coach, I think it's people take it for granted. You need to be at a certain point, you need to be at a certain stage to be able to come forth with things. And you know, we originally wanted to end at 1 hour. We're at 7:25. And I'll say that will take 5 minutes just so that we can continue this conversation next week. And I think that this topic is very important. In a way, it brings around many things. If you ask me, I'll say that today we started answering the question what it means to cheat. Cheating is what you define it to be, isn't it? But in a certain fashion, there are certain things you need a value system. And very often you ask, what are your values? People will tell you something, but I think that the three values that you pointed out today, they are values that all of us could learn from, all of us could copy. Unconditional love. Okay. There are no secret things that we cannot discuss, isn't it? There are no demons. And of course, we'll push and challenge. I think my takeaway message is what Stacy put for us in the chat just before. I mean, I wanted to close on that, but I'll be unfair to people like Jude. A sexless relationship exacerbated by a breakdown in communication makes cheating an alluring option. Of course, again, we have gotten to a stage. We have talked about this in different ways, and we want to put this in the context. I mean, again, in the context of some people, if you are married, you're in a relationship and all that, and you are depriving each other of sex, and on top of that, you are not even communicating because sex is a most intimate form of communication, isn't it? But then there's also different forms of communication. If that intimate form of communication is already broken down, and then other forms of communication we are not taking advantage of, no doubt the person will seek that elsewhere. And we already talked about, Stacy was congratulating, when you make it a taboo, when you make it a taboo, the demons are protected. Life is choices we make. And I think for me, this brings it home. I love this message, which is something that you indicated at the beginning. Well, you talked about this. At the end of the day, it seems like we should do away with the name calling and labeling. Instead, let's focus on strengthening relationships and be more solution focused. So again, you said it. Maybe we should change it from cheating. Maybe we should not call it cheating because you stop the conversation. For some people, they don't want to hear anything once that is why we talked about demystifying it. How do we strengthen? How do we build? What are the things? What are the solutions? I would say next week, let's focus on those things that you indicated. The power. Okay, those things that you indicated as areas where people have to grow in. I can't see it in my notes anymore. But let's focus on that and get to the solution. What is it? How do we strengthen these relationships? Especially for people who do not want to hear. Once somebody has cheated, it's out. That we are done. We cannot ever have that conversation anymore. How do we move beyond that? And I see Jude again says it is important to note that there are many aspects to sex that aren't intercourse. Hugging, kissing, flirting, holding, teasing, and complimenting are wholesome elements of sex. Jude, I need to get you on the show someday because you seem to have a lot of insight into sex. But again, those aspects could also form part of cheating, isn't it? But all we wanted to talk about today, and I really want to say thank you, BK. Unfortunately, I beg to the audience, let's have a last word from BK. We'll continue the conversations next week. BK.
Yeah. So I wrote some words which I probably just will have to fall back on so they guide me so I don't make it too long. I wanted the focus of today to be around communication, which is openness. We've talked about communication. Obviously, it is the bedrock of every relationship. If we can talk about anything and everything, there's nothing that can go wrong. I promise you, there's absolutely nothing that can go wrong. I have dealt with people who are in dire straits, in the most dire of abusive situations as we speak. Some of them are still undergoing the excruciating pain of what would have been abuse. Yet we talk about it and we laugh about it and we empower these people to take ownership of who they are and to become responsible for their actions while holding their spouses accountable. And this some of these ladies enjoy it so much I have to ask them to slow down. See, because God says vengeance is mine. What we do not understand about the potency of that statement is that God wraps vengeance in love and respect when you serve it properly. That is what deals the vengeance. What do I mean by this? Imagine you have a husband who makes your life totally miserable, as in there's nothing you do that is right in his eyes, and he's finding faults and throwing and casting aspersions and insults. And all you do is you check for what it is he's trying to say. You tell him what it is you're doing to build the home and why you're doing what it is you're doing. You flip it on its side and you ask him, what is it exactly that he says is wrong with this thing that you're doing? You see, because when I come at you like a hurricane, what I want is a fight because that's my thing. I know I'll win. When you twist it on its head and you come with love and respect, but you hold me accountable, I become so small in your eyes. Or rather, I become so small and I start feeling so petty. I would have one of two choices. It's either I seize the opportunity and take that reputation that you've given me to live up to, or I try to insist, in which case I demean myself even more, become even smaller in your eyes, and that is how I lose the respect I already did not have. And I can tell you that while it's not your intention to hurt, there's no pain bigger than that because I walk away from that scene wondering what you're thinking of me. And because you don't say anything, you don't point any fingers, I go to my deepest place of vulnerability. This is deep psychology. I go to my deepest place of vulnerability. I look at all my weaknesses. And those are the tapes that I play in my head. Those are the voices that I hear, but I hear them as if you are the one articulating them. Some people call it the silent treatment, and we all know how potent that silent treatment is. So, no, sweetheart, don't pick a fight. A fight is what we know how to do. We've been doing it all our lives, and we know how to scream you down and how to shout and how to demean you and how to make you feel small. Remember who you are. This applies to men who are bullied by their spouses. Don't flex that muscle. You don't need it. Let love do the talking. Let respect do the walking. So we talked about communication. You need to be vulnerable to your man. And you need to be vulnerable to and with your woman. Otherwise, your marriage or your union is heading for the rocks. We talked about values. We've talked about values all evening. We've talked about responsibility. Be responsible for everything you do. And if it's not empowering you, don't do it. Loyalty. we've highlighted the fact that loyalty is to the self first. You're loyal to your values. Operate with people through your values. It means you need to know who you are. I could love you to the moon and back. If you can't live with those values that are articulated here, we can't be friends. It's as simple as that. I'll be crying tears of blood, losing you. But each time you come to my vicinity, I will hold you to those values. I'm not forcing you because it's your choice. If you come close, that's the filter through which we will operate. Otherwise, you don't have access to me. And it applies that way. Here at home, with my spouse, with my kids, with you, our audience, with Lambert, with Jane and Karen, who are my very good friends, with Jude. We still have to get close, gosh. I love you. I love your wisdom. And everybody else on here. When we cross that bridge, those three values apply, and that is how we relate. Beyond that, there is no relationship. If it's too hot for you, okay, there will be distance. It will be natural because I'll be just way too much for you. And people tend to call me extremely intense. I've made peace with it. I'm not changing that for anything. I'd rather be my only friend than compromise on that. Because it just leaves you at a place where you're peaceful. And how could peace be wrong? Crying out loud. Recovery. That's one of the things we've talked about. It brings us back to purpose. We all have a purpose, and that purpose is to be love. So the analogy is that of a battery. So you've got a set of batteries, light, love. You put it in a radio, you hear sound and music. You put it in a torch, you get light. That's exactly how we are. The raw ingredient that we all are is love, because love will create, procreate, give, forgive, and love will heal. But then behind that, you are a tool, and that tool is shaped by your soul. And yet, your soul would be your abilities, your capabilities, your gifts, your talents, your emotions, and how they all interplay to make you the person, the unique person that you are, that complements me. And it's a bit like my whole system. If the heart starts fighting the liver, I die until the heart and the liver realize they are one. They're not even parts of the same body. They are one. And they don't go to war, because once they go to war, it's an internal conflict. What do we have? Dis-ease, lack of ease. When you bring dis and ease, what do you get? Disease. That is stress, duress, distress, and it is the onset of every ailment on the planet. That is why some people succumb to COVID, others do not. It all depends on how stressed you are. I beat it 3 days, pants down, because I do what I do. It is my lifestyle. Exercise, I've got a routine that I do, which a routine set of exercises, which I will share with you all one day. What it does is it expands my lung capacity. And then, of course, I've got push-ups, pull-ups, and a whole combination of things that I do. We all do exercise in this house. So when my daughter contracted it, we thought, okay, we might as well just deal with this thing, because we're not going to run away from it forever. So we took a risk. We could call it a risk. But we thought, okay, we should be able to handle it. And we did. Came down with mild symptoms. Maybe we were the lucky ones. But that's exactly what happened. So to come back to this whole thing, the less stressed your body is, the more you can handle anything you throw at it. And it's as simple as that, as epigenetics will tell you. And this is where we start diverting, and digressing, because again, everything is connected. What is epigenetics? Epigenetics is biology recognizing what we call faith in spirituality. Because it is, again, in psychology, it is the power of the mind over the body, nothing else. So you notice that the same principles from the Bible are interspersed as different disciplines. We call them different names. We interpret them as different things. We package them, we market them, we sell them, sometimes as pills. Placebo effect would be one of those things we talk about a lot. There's the placebo effect, then there's the nocebo effect. Placebo effect is, I tell you, I'm treating you, you get well, just because I said so, but I gave you saline. Your mind did the work. Nocebo effect, you go to your doctor, they give you a death sentence, you've got 3 months to live. You die after 2 months because he made that pronunciation. That's the nocebo effect. So you realize that we live in a world that is very potent and extremely complex, but we don't understand that world because we don't understand who we are and we don't understand our power within it. I'm not saying when you're ill, don't take medication. Please make sure you do. So be careful about that. I'm not making any flagrant, generic, blatant, crazy statements here. I'm just trying to put things into perspective so we start believing more in who we are and the power that we carry inside and our ability to heal one another. The Bible says, lift one another's burdens. It's not for nothing. It's because we carry power within us. And if we can have these conversations, we will go a long way. So, are you going to join me, or am I going to keep running my mouth and having the conversation just with Lambert? It's time for you to pick up that mantle. It's time for you to spread the word. Let's build a community and make that community work. I love you all so much, whether you like it or not. And there's nothing you can do for me to love you less. There's nothing you can do for me to love you more, because guess what? As far as I'm concerned and you're here present, I just am love. So sorry, you have no choice.
So, Karen, I don't know you. You're BK's friend. You have been on this show repeatedly ever since you started coming on. I just discovered today is your birthday. I wanted to say very, very happy birthday, Karen. And I hope you had fun. We'll send you a Mindset Boulevard gift, whatever that is that BK is going to
Absolutely.
And I just wanted to say that, again, we can't get into real depths with these conversations just because of the platform we have. But this is, if you really want to, this is a place to go sign up. You can get one-on-one with BK. You can enjoy a lot of these things. Mindsetboulevard.com, and we keep building the community. I want to thank everybody for coming on. It's been great. A man is just as faithful as his options. That's a great thing that I learned today. And I really love the line where you said, life is not about your spouse. Life is not about your kids. Life is not about your friends. But these are important vehicles, and they will test you to make the best. Very important. Because very often, I'm sure the demystification of cheating is, it starts with us. We should be able, do not think that by cheating, you are punishing the other person or you are doing something to hurt the other person. Yes, that's part of it, but in that process, it is you. And so I want to thank everybody. Next Monday is another opportunity. We're going to handle some other aspect of cheating. And I hope Jude Ozugen and Jane will not be late. Thank you all. Stacey, thank you. Thank you for that. So have a good evening, and thank you. See you next week for another edition on the Lambom Show. We're going to continue talking about cheating, demystifying it, and we're going to see what does it take, what is it going to take for us to heal. Until then, have a good evening.